Africa is rich. It's a gem. The landscape so spectacular. Endowed with unique, diverse flora and fauna. Underneath, precious resources.
Who owns the capital, natural capital?
The natural resources, we are just like people who are taking care of it for the future. We are caretakers.
We need to live lives that reflect the richness of our continent. We need to live lives that reflect how well God blessed us as Africans with abundant resources in terms of water, in terms of a good environment, in terms of mountains, in terms of forests, in terms of fisheries.
Unless we can really engage the business sector to change their practices and their policies to be more sustainable, we will fail. So the governments have agreed to a common global agenda.
As Africa rises, the need to survive as we live off nature leaves its people between a rock and a hard place. This dilemma has become one of the 21st century's major challenges. On the 9th and 10th of October 2015, a major Pan-African event was held at the Royal Sanctuary, Akosombo, Ghana. Business leaders, academics, governments, civil societies, financial institutions and development agencies met at the first ever Pan-African Business and Biodiversity Forum. The forum's aim was to promote increased sustainability within Africa's development agenda through mainstreaming of natural capital and improved public-private civil society cooperation. It was organized by BirdLife International in partnership with 20 leading organizations.
That we have all the fundamental and basic resources to be able to make it. One area in which we are lacking is information, technology, and a certain level of scientific capability to be able to make an important contribution to the maintenance of the diversity of our plant and animal species.
For me, it is not for anything but a passion that I've also grown to respect nature. And creating a national economy, a global economy that protects rather than destroys nature is what we have to shoot for.
It will be important that we all see this as a shared agenda. Business, government, private sector, civil society, conservation NGOs. This is not an issue of sharing blame or allocating blame. This is saying, how do we work together to get to where we want to?
We also need to demonstrate that sustainable development works and it can work. So therefore, there is the need for us to undertake some catalytic interventions and to show us a demonstration as we advocate for this.
The debate of natural capital, it just seems to be everybody is a conservationist. And that's where it gets interesting because we are all involved, we are all in it. But the civil society is already so organized to participate because we are everywhere and we are already participating. And I think from our own point of view is that we are looking at the other people now speaking the language that we have been speaking for decades. So civil society is not a group that you can ignore in any debate about sustainable development.
Safeguard policies are requirements for projects that are supported by the World Bank, specific requirements they need to follow. There's the requirements of the financiers in this case. But the new terminology will be environmental and social standards.
5 years ago, we embarked on a project with the bank to look at what Africa's ecological footprint
that led to the African Ecological Footprint Report in 2012. So shortly after we issued that, the African Union began a project defining Africa's 2063 goals and 50-year futuristic look. So the bank approached that and said, why don't we look at what the implications of these goals would be on nature? And hence the idea for the African Ecological Futures Program.
Looking at our adaptation pathways.
4 major themes were in focus in various panel discussions, presentations, workshops, and exhibitions. Extractive industries, sustainable agriculture, renewable energy, and natural capital accounting.
How much do we have, and how do we use what we have sustainably? So that was the beginning, the genesis of the Pan-African Business and Biodiversity Forum. What are the issues confronting us here in Africa? We have to narrow down to what is realistic.
For those of us in the mining industry, the subject of investing in natural capital is one that is both critical and timely. Particularly as we set our sights on ensuring business sustainability in these difficult times within which we are currently operating.
If you have mineral wealth, you would anticipate that the countries that had that wealth, or the regions that had that wealth, would be top of the league table as far as economic growth is concerned, poverty reduction, all the SDGs. And there's a certain amount of empirical evidence to suggest that in many cases it's the opposite. We need to address governance. That's the magic word. And we were talking about it 10 or 15 years ago, and we didn't really understand what we meant. We knew it was transparency and accountability, but it's a lot more involved than that. And within that, the recipe of good governance is we can include environmental and social safeguards.
As conservationists, we need to sit together with business people because we need money to conserve, and we can't conserve these natural resources without money. So that's why we need to sit with business people so that we can forge a way forward how to work together. Because these developers, the oil companies, they are coming in sensitive ecosystems, including protected areas, wildlife protected areas.
Is this a reality also?
Talks on the extractives industry were geared towards making the extractive sector sustainable for nature and people. It was also concluded there is need to strengthen governance of oil, gas and mining sectors for improved biodiversity outcomes. The signing of a contract between Ghana Cement Ghacem and the Ghana Wildlife Society was the highlight of the day, an example that the private sector can join hands with conservationists to achieve a common goal.
You know, we say that you should walk the talk. And so this is exactly the sort of thing we are looking for.
This partnership gives us the opportunity to make use of the resources in BirdLife International and in Ghana Wildlife Society to restore our quarry sites at the best practices internationally.
Still on the first day, another hot topic was focusing on harnessing Africa's food security through nature-based solutions under the theme Sustainable Agriculture. There is a need to enhance resilience to climate change impacts and to emphasize on smart agriculture to improve productivity, especially with the projection that the African population will have doubled by year 2050.
Food insecurity remains a challenge today, and feeding the very many 800 or over that are food insecure, malnutrition remains a challenge. Capacity building at all levels is imperative if we are going to go far. We need to invest in the youth, really to know about sustainable development, what sustainability entails. And I think capacity, even if you're thinking of capacity building, I think it has to be done at all levels, from the smallholder farmers. That is the center of this issue.
Digging up all their minerals, their GDP looks great, but they're really hurting their environment. And you don't see that in the accounting.
On day 2, all ears were on renewable energy and natural capital accounting.
There is a type of account called, but we are working on that stuff.
The experts were brainstorming as well as giving recommendations like how to manage nature for development,
or regional level? If so, how? Or does it just fit into global processes?
safeguarding biodiversity and wildlife from power lines and wind power infrastructure, as well as mainstreaming biodiversity into the energy sector.
The aim of the session was to show that everyone promotes renewable energy as a solution, as a climate change mitigation solution, but poorly planned renewable energies can also cause great harm to biodiversity and nature. Planning and good legislation that supports best practices is essential to both have renewables that do not impact on nature, but also provide the right solutions for climate change.
The Pan-African Business and Biodiversity Forum's climax was the overarching theme of natural capital accounting.
So this is really cutting edge of you.
If the scientist on the ground is trying to do a national capital accounting, I can tell you we'll get it completely wrong. And I don't know, one thing we haven't talked about is how there is going to be this collaboration between science and economists to be able to actually do this accounting.
Getting a monetary value is not always the best solution as well. You can have other actual information. It may be a world heritage site, and you don't need an economic value to tell you that you shouldn't go there. It's a world heritage site.
From natural capital accounting, the main highlight is that it is useful when we value natural resources, because it helps us to have a standard of communication that policymakers understand.
The Senchi statement.
After all was said and done, the meeting was crowned with a forward-looking commitment by all stakeholders, dubbed the Senchi Statement.
The Senchi Statement is the outcome of the Pan-Africa Business and Biodiversity Forum. It's a forward-looking commitment from forum partners and from all the people that attended the Business and Biodiversity Forum on how they are going to move forward in matters of natural capital and its integration in decision-making, in business, and also in terms of people's livelihoods.
The Senchi Statement aims to identify, develop, and mainstream best practices on key biodiversity area safeguards to manage risk for the benefit of society as a whole. 2. Promote collaborative business and biodiversity initiatives throughout Africa. 3. To ensure all sectors contribute to the creation and sustenance of these business and biodiversity initiatives to maximize benefits.
What we need to do in order to have an effective meetings on an annual basis maybe, or biannual, depending on how the organizations wants to do it, but we need to have an agenda. We need to set some goals, we need to set some deliverables, we need to come back to another next meeting and measure ourselves and how far have we gone from where we were the previous year, so we can have a very interesting way, so we know where we're going.
I would like to see the forums, to discuss this, particularly probably every year pre-conference and a main conference every 2 years to evaluate and monitor the progress that are being made.
Doing this every year, I don't think is that bad. Because you see, things like this, when you leave them for long, it gets swept under the carpet. People forget easily. Beginnings, you make it frequent, and then as you establish, you can stagger it.
We believe in Africa, we believe in the future, and we believe that together we can achieve things and more rapidly than people can imagine.
The end of the Pan-African Business and Biodiversity Forum ushered in the BirdLife Council for the Africa Partnership Meeting 2015. The CAP meeting happened from the 11th through to the 14th of October 2015.